In these fundamental guides, I will be showing you how to get more out of your abilities and show you something you might not know on how and where to use your skill properly. I will be staying away from item builds as they change from patch to patch, but the fundamentals on how to use a god rarely change. We will start off with the basics, then move on to more in-depth stuff later in the video. So for starters, let's look at Anubis' pros and cons. He has high burst damage and a short cooldown stun, but he has no escape and he's rooted while he's using two of his skills. Abilities wise, you should always take sprint, as this will be your only escape if things turn bad, and then it's either beads or aegis depending on the other team's composition. Skills overview. A passive sorrow, whenever Anubis does damage with an ability, he will gain a physical and magical protection buff. Also, while you have this buff, you have a 30% reduced crowd control duration. Now, this is gained from each tick of damage, so if you drop one skill under 3 creeps, you'll have full stacks in the first tick. But in all honesty, it's nothing you're really going to notice with Anubis, as he's very squishy and he's just going to get caught out anyway. All of Anubis' abilities do damage over time, so let's get that out of the way. So there's no instant damage coming out here. Now, Plague of Locusts, it does damage in a cone in front of Anubis, but roots him in place for 3 seconds. Mummify is a skill shot stun. Grasping Hands places a circle on the ground that does damage over 2 seconds and slows your enemy. And Death Gaze is Anubis' higher DPS ultimate ability, which also roots you in place for 3 seconds. When it comes to the use of these skills, most people just throw them out anywhere, as long as they do damage. I'm going to go into depth about how you should use Anubis' skills and increasing your effectiveness. Let's stick with your 3, Grasping Hands, as this will be the most used skill through the game. Most players will try and stun a god with Mummify, then drop Grasping Hands under him. Let's look at it another way. You should be using Grasping Hands to either clear creep waves or use it to zone and damage enemy gods. Now let's talk about what I mean by zoning. Instead of dropping Grasping Hands under a god so they are in the centre, drop it a little more behind them so they either have to make the choice of going the long way through your damage or come to you, or on the other hand you can drop it in front of them to keep them away. Basically, we're using your skill to make the enemy god do what you want them to do. This will also help you land your stun more, as you're going to know where they're going to go, because you're going to be forcing them that way. Mummify can mean the difference between life and death. A lot of the times you will get into situations where if you miss your stun, you will die, either during ganks that you start or ones that happen to you. A well placed stun means a lot. When you're face to face, use your Grasping Hands to zone and slow an enemy god. By landing your Grasping Hands first, you can instantly know where they're going to go, and they are also slowed. Also, another thing to look at, if you land your Grasping Hands first, by the time your Mummify runs out, they have already received the full damage from it, and also doing it that way will give you an extra tick on your Locusts if you decide to use that as well. Be mindful of gods with loops, as it's quite easy to predict where they're going to go, and cast your Mummify just before they land, and drop Grasping Hands under them. It makes them think twice before being so aggressive. Obviously you can't get Barcus' one because that's so fast, but most other ones like Odin, Anher, you get my drift there. If it's a gank on you, it's normally easier to predict their movements, as they will normally be coming straight at you or at least chasing you. As you run, do a 180, Mummify them and run. As you're running, drop a Grasping Hands at your feet and that will try and slow them up behind you. When you're the one trying to gank, you'll have to use your own judgment on what skill to use first. But always try and come in from the side or behind. An unaware enemy is an easier target to stun. Body language. If you want to stun someone, don't run straight at them. Everyone knows if Anubis is running at you, a Mummify is sure to follow, and they will easily strafe your stun. Try to imagine yourself as on her, needing to get the right angle to get the stun against the wall, except you're moving up around the creep wave to get indirectly closer to the enemy. That way you're not setting off any alarm bells by running straight at them. Death Gaze is your signature move. As your ultimate skill, this dishes out a lot of damage, but remember, the damage is over 3 seconds and you need to be constantly directing it at your target. One of the things worth noting is this skill alone won't one-shot an enemy god of equal level. You will need to combo it with Grasping Hands at least. If your target is trying to run circles around you, make sure you lead the gaze in front of them to compensate for the lag. And last but not least, your 1, Plague of Locusts. This skill is more like a last resort skill, as you will be using everything else before this, as it roots you in place, making it easy for an enemy god to hit you with most abilities. Generally you'll be using this in 4 places. 1. while an enemy is mummified on your grasping hands and your death gaze is on cooldown. 2. While an enemy is running away and they're on very low HP and your other skills are on cooldown and you know you can get a few ticks off. 3. During a last stand when you know you're not going to get away, so you just go all out and pray. And 4. Killing creeps. If you position yourself to the side of a creep wave, you will hit the full wave with this just one ability. Mid lane tactics. Don't try and do too much damage early on, as you'll burn through your mana before you'll be able to do any real damage, and they will have plenty of time to back off and heal up. You want to start working down their health after they hit level 3 and keep it below 75%, but don't try and destroy them unless they do something stupid, then by all means kill them. What you're trying to do is keep their health down just enough so when you get your ultimate, a Grasping Hands Death Gaze combo will easily kill them, because what you'll find is if you try and use that combo on a fully healed god, you will only get them down to 10-20%. Occasionally you'll be able to use your Locusts because they will stay and fight, but a lot will get away. Another thing to add, when you go to do damage to a god, poke in and get out. What I mean by this is drop your Mummify and Grasping Hands and retreat, because you will take a lot of damage early game from creeps and can end up causing yourself more damage than you will inflict on the enemy. Side lane tactics and ideal partners. Keep your partner between you and your enemies. If anything goes wrong, you want them to take the first hit and not you, or at least have them blocked away. A good lane partner to have is anyone with a stun. A double stun lane is very deadly. Look at Ymir and Anubis. 2 stuns, 2 slows, 2 big ults. Beware with a Sobek partner. It's all well and good him throwing the new stunning, but he's also doing one thing you don't want, and that's putting the enemy closer to you. And like I said previously, the stun is a live or die ability. You only have to miss it once and the enemy can be in a great position to kill you thanks to Sobek. Team fighting. Even in team fights you want to be at the back. Don't think of yourself as an initiator and try and get that stun off, because if you're in range of them, they're in range of you. So stay at the back. When the fighting happens, just get in range, throw your stun in, drop your Grasping Hands, then back out. Don't try and use your ult or Locust unless one of them is singled off, because once you light up one of those abilities, you will be focused for an easy kill. Just keep poking at the fight when your abilities come off cooldown, and above all, stay alive. Skill level in order. Put the first point in Grasping Hands, second point in Mummifier, third point in Grasping Hands, fourth point in Plague of Locusts, and then after that work off the priority, your ultimate, Grasping Hands, Plague of Locusts, and then Mummify for the last skill to level up. Some people won't like this order and will even disagree with it, but let's look at it this way. Grasping Hands is obvious and one of the first skills you're going to use in a fight. Now for my decision to level Locust before Mummify. The first point into Mummify gives you 1.2 seconds, but after that you only get 0.2 of a second for each point that you put in. So you need to put 3 points in to get an extra tick off your dots, whereas 3 points into your Locust is more than double the damage of your dots, and early game is where you're going to use the Locust more. Late game is where you're going to use your stun a lot more, and it kind of just works out nicer this way. I hope this guide has helped you in some way, shape or form. There will be more to follow, and if you have any questions, please put a comment below. Like, rate and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.